All right, everyone, welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat Podcast here on the CLNS Media Network. Brian Hines from Pat's Pulpit, joined as always by Alex Barth from 98.5, the Sports Hub. And the preseason is officially over, and the Patriots have begun the process here of cutting down their roster from 89, 90 players down to that 53-man limit that they have to get to by Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll kick it off here on the players they've cut or released so far. Carl Davis and Quandre Mosley started the cuts last night, and then today they have waived Carson Wells, Johnny Lumpkin, Diego Fagot, Brad Hawkins, Justice Tavai, CJ Maribel, Rodney Randall, Mika Vanterpool, and Scotty Washington. So starting to get down that process. I believe they're 78, that high 70, low 80 range.
78 players on the roster right now, 25 cuts to go.
All right, so still some work to go. Again, they have till Tuesday at 4 p.m., but the biggest news probably of the day was a trade they actually made, and they shipped out running back Pierre Strong, fourth-round pick last year for some offensive tackle depth, which we all know they kind of needed where they were at. Tyrone Wheatley Jr. from the Cleveland Browns. So, starting with Strong, maybe a little bit of a surprise that they ship him out here. Fourth-round pick from last year, but they needed that depth along the offensive line.
They did. Are there other ways they could have gotten it? Corey Cunningham got released today, former Patriot. There's certainly some things to like about Tyrone Wheatley Jr., and we can get into that, but did you have to give up a guy you took with a fourth-round pick a year ago? I'm usually the positive guy here. I don't love this trade. I think that Pierre Strong showed some promise last year, and it was super brief, but I think he did show some promise. Didn't do a ton to separate himself in camp this year, which is fair, but he was also banged up. I think it's too early to quit on a guy that showed you, even what he showed you last year, that you invested that high of a pick in. And so why did they do it? Well, you look at Pierre Strong, he's a zone read running back. That's where he was at his best. Remember when they picked him last year, we were all like, all right, he's going to fit in this new offense. Well, they're not running that offense anymore. They're back to a gap traditional Patriots offense, and I don't know. They never really gave Pierre Strong a ton of chances to show what he could do in that sort of system, but he was drafted for Matt Patricia's offense, and Matt Patricia and that offense are no longer here. And I think you can extrapolate that a little bit. You could say the same thing about Tyquan Thornton. You could say the same thing about Cole Strange. Those picks were made to adjust the offensive system, which is now no longer in place, which that adjustment's gone back. I'm not saying they're going to trade Cole Strange or Tyquan Thornton, but I think in a lot of ways, the offensive picks from that class, outside of maybe Kevin Harris, are in a lot of trouble here. They're now out of scheme. And this is, I talked last year, and people think I know I'm too hard on Matt Patricia because I'm trying to cover for Mac or something. That's not the case. I said this last year. I think Matt Patricia, in some senses, set them back more than the season he was here. I think the impacts of what he did are going to be felt for multiple seasons. And this is an example of that. They didn't need to draft Pierre Strong last year. They did so because they believed in Matt Patricia's offense that didn't work. And now they have to move him for a guy that's never played in an NFL game. They did need a tackle. I do like that they addressed it. There are some interesting things about what Tyrone Wheatley Jr. does. I'm not saying he's not rosterable, but you should have been able to fill they should have been able to fill this need without trading Pierre Strong. I just think it was that they were at a point where they knew they weren't going to keep him because the circumstances, regardless of his talent level, the circumstances didn't support them keeping him. So that to me is it's kind of a bummer. I guess the trade itself, whatever, but I hate the circumstances that led to this trade happening.
Yeah, I don't love losing Strong. I mean, how many times did we sit here over the summer and just say like that game-breaking speed, even though it's, they changed that scheme a little, so it might not have been the perfect fit. And he wasn't great during his opportunities in the summer. And obviously they went out and got Zeke, but you just think behind Ramondre and Zeke, that little kind of change of pace with that skill set would have been valuable in the role. And he flashed that at times, even though he had 15, 16 touches last year and just under 60 snaps. You saw that in Vegas and Arizona when it was on the field. So I would have liked them to see, give it another year or maybe 5-6 weeks till the trade deadline even, and then, call it then. But Yeah, I didn't love moving on from him, but I don't think they had plans for him, what it
Right.
sounded like. And so where do you kind of we'll get into Wheatley in a second, but are J.J. Taylor and Ty Montgomery roster, I don't know about locks here, but you'd expect both of those guys to be around this
Well,
year
there
now.
was no way both of them were going to make the roster. It just didn't make sense for a number of reasons that they were both going to be on the initial 53. I think now that's a possibility. It becomes, what do they want to do with Kevin Harris? Do they want to roster him? I still think he's very redundant to the top of their depth chart, and he's a guy you can probably get on the practice squad. And if you need him later, you can use him later. But they generally keep 4 backs. And if I'm constructing that room right now off who they have left, that's the group. It's Stevenson and Elliott and Montgomery and Taylor. So I think this is a great sign for J.J. Taylor in particular. I think he's in near lock at this point. If they chose Montgomery over Strong, I sort of get it. But again, I don't love to the point where that choice I don't love the fact that they got to the point where that choice makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, it's one of those, they're making the right choice in the moment. But the reason this moment is presenting itself is because they didn't make the right choices previously. It's the best of a bad situation.
Yeah. You thought they could have kept Strawn and get Montgomery to the practice squad, right? Because he hasn't practiced at all pretty much this summer. But that was the decision they decided to go with. So yeah, the Matt Patricia draft class there, interesting how that played out. But we can talk about Wheatley here because they needed the offensive line depth, as we've all seen throughout training camp, throughout the preseason. He 2021 UDFA out of Stony Brook, and he started at Michigan. I read that correct, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and a converted tight end. So he's never played a regular season game in the NFL. He's been on mostly practice squads throughout his 2-year career here, but 6'6", 320, seems like a really good athlete as a converted tight end. So one of these developmental options, but we'll just kind of see how it goes here. They needed a body there at some point.
Very similar skill set to Calvin Anderson. 6'6", 320. Yeah. So big, very athletic, super raw technically. And that's what Anderson was coming in. And we kind of talked about, all right, well, they invested all this money in Adrian Clem. They're going to coach him up. He's going to be a guy. This isn't Anderson's more advanced than Wheatley is, but it's that same kind of idea. You have a guy that has all the uncoachables, and you're going to see how much you can teach him. So we'll see. We'll see what he becomes. I think he's sort of a flyer right now. I doubt he's a guy that he's not going to start week 1. I would be very surprised if he starts week 1, but he's a guy I think they feel that, they get a month and a half into the season. Suddenly they need a tackle. They feel like they can have him ready for that point. So we'll see what happens with that. Again, I threw out that name a bunch last week, Yasir Durant. They didn't have a ton of tackle depth in 2021, traded for Yasir Durant, whatever it was, the day of roster cuts, the day before roster cuts. And he sort of just hung around all year, and he played sporadically, but it was a buffer that they wouldn't have otherwise had at the position that they then had. And I think that's sort of what Tyrone Wheatley's here for. He's basically that random 4th tackle spot, 3rd, 4th, depending on if you still consider Riley Reif a tackle or City So a tackle. That extra tackle spot, it was probably between Connor McDermott, who's been hurt, Andrew Stuber, who struggled. This is basically, I think, what that spot is.
So you think he'll stick around? It's not one of those. Who was the Bills guy we talked about, Russell Bodine, who they traded for, then just cut
I don't know. Later? Look, he should make. It's going to be a massive disappointment if he doesn't make the team, considering you gave up a guy who used a 4th round pick a year ago. But yeah. I also look at it and I'm like, he's a fringe roster player. That's who he is. So we'll see.
It's still tough there with the 3 draft picks, right? How is that whole thing going to shake out? Because you think they have to keep those 3, and obviously they're starting 5, and then those depth pieces, it gets kind of shaky. But yeah, I looked it up earlier. The Browns O-line coach, just back to his play, Bill Callahan, basically described him as exactly as you did. He's really athletic. He's shown the ability to pass protect, but it's a matter of putting it all together. His run technique, his pass technique. So that raw type of player. So developmental, but we'll see how it goes there, because keep saying it, they need that depth. And we were out at practice today and Riley Reif wasn't there. We saw him get hurt Friday night in the preseason finale. Mike Onwenu was there, but still limited. Good to see Cole Strange back, but I don't know where you at with this week 1 offensive line, because we don't know who's going to be out there and ready.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. You just nailed it. There's a lot of unknowns there. We don't know. So we'll get out. We'll see what it looks like next week. 4 days off here coming up for the team, or No, we'll have practice next couple days, and then it's 4 days off. So I think starting next week, we'll see if Cole Strange is back out there, if Riley Reeves out there, but it's still very up in the air right now.
Yep. All right, we'll get into the rest of practice a little bit later. Again, it's technically regular season now, so we only got to see the attendance, not the whole practice, just the first 5-10 minutes. But back to the cuts. Seemed pretty, players we expected. Anyone kind of stand out for you? I'd say Carl Davis was probably the biggest name, but he was a guy you might have figured was already on that bubble. Maybe a guy they could have got to the practice squad, even though his Instagram goodbye kind of seemed like he was just maybe not coming back here. But I don't know, anyone else that caught your eye or unexpected?
No, Carl Davis is a big one, although I had him all. I don't think they've cut. I got to pull up that list again. I don't think they've cut anybody I had on my roster projection. So I'm still, there's Pierre Strong, who they traded. Yeah, I didn't have any of these guys on. So I would say no.
Yep. The one person who wasn't outright waived was Diego Fagot, who was the injury waiver or whatever, because he got banged up in that preseason finale. And, a Navy guy, right? You figured Bill likes him. So if he clears, he can return on IR and they could keep him in the building throughout the year. So seems like that might be where that's headed with Fagot. Yeah. But so we can get into the rest of the practice attendance, because there was a lot going on besides the guys you expected to get cut not missing. Red jersey update: Demario Douglas was in the red jersey. He was limited last week, but now he's in the red jersey. Shoulder injury per Mike Reese on that play against Green Bay that he got tackled. So where are you kind of at with Douglas? And also in the red jersey, Mike Gesicki shed his, so that's a good sign for week one.
Yeah, good news on Gesicki right there. Seems like he's on track to return week one, as is Hunter Henry. He was back out there, told us after practice he was feeling good. He got hurt last week. On Douglas, man, I hope he's ready. And we sort of touched on this last week a little bit, Brian, but he's got to kind of come out of the gates flying, because they really held him back at times this summer. And it's encouraging in the sense that, hey, they have this rookie running back that they trust this much. But there's also this element of, well, could he use the exposure to an NFL game? So I'm hoping the injury doesn't slow him down and he can hit the ground rolling, week one, especially if Tyquan's going to be on IR, which Mike Reese said this morning was a possibility. He's going to play. Douglas is going to play. So you hope he's ready for week one, because I think he'll have an opportunity to really play.
Yep. And the secondary, there was some things in the secondary today. John Jones was back, which was a good sign, because he's missed upward of 20 days, almost 3 weeks of practice. So he was back out there, but no Christian Gonzalez, who we saw got banged up in the last practice, hit his ankle, that low leg area, foot. But then he made the trip to Tennessee. There was that video pregame of him warming up. He looked pretty good, but he wasn't out there today. So you worried about Gonzalez, or you think that's just kind of, take it easy? We don't need you right now. We have 2 weeks till the regular season here.
I don't know what to read on that, because I thought he looked okay. I know he made the trip to New York, not to New York. I'm still used to that being the last preseason game. I know he
I know it was weird.
Right, I know he made the trip to Tennessee and everything. So I'm not super worried. They're being careful with a lot of guys. Saw Jonathan Jones out there today, was kind of limited as well. Yeah.
Yep.
And apparently, Jonathan Jones, real quick. Apparently, fans are really mad that there's no clarity on what the injury is.
For John Jones?
Yeah, we don't know, right? I thought I saw somebody maybe speculate it was a shoulder, but there was nothing concrete about it. I don't even remember where I saw that.
I thought Karen.
Was it Karen? Okay. Well, I trust Karen.
I think she said shoulder.
But
yeah,
I would just say you guys are worried way too much about that. It's not a big, he told us today his goal is to be ready for week one. He seems in good spirits. It's not like he's in a walking boot. It's not like he's in a sling. It's not like he's in concussion protocol. If it's a minor thing, I don't think there's a ton of way to know. We'll get the injury report next week. I understand, the Calvin Anderson one is more of a mystery, and that one I get all right, well, what are we dealing with here? Just because of what it's been on the offensive line this year, and he's on the NFI list and all that. I would just say this is no inside information. This is just reading the situation, having covered these things before. I'm not super worried about Jonathan Jones, and I don't think the unknown nature of his injury is any sort of negative tell. I just think it's not a big deal, and for whatever reason, it's not out there. It might not be out there because it's such a non-reason that nobody's even digging for it. I wouldn't worry about it a ton.
So Karen never said shoulder. Her last tweet about John Jones was, it's been out since August 4th with an undisclosed injury, should be back before the Patriots season opener. According to a source, the team is being careful with him, but he seems to be okay and should be good to go in a couple weeks. That was August 18th.
I don't remember. Maybe it was another player. Maybe I'm thinking of the Tyquan Thornton thing.
I know. I thought it was the shoulder.
But I vaguely remember seeing that. But Alex Barth says Jonathan Jones shoulder injury. No, but I don't think it's going to matter, and he seems like he's in good shape for week 1.
Yeah, and he's the guy that you just, he's going to show up week 1 and probably be good to go. He doesn't need all this practice time, so not too much to be worried about there from John Jones.
Right.
But anything? I think those were the big practice notes. Was there anything else I was missing that caught your eye?
Jeremiah Farm's still here. That's a guy who had a sneaky, and there's other guys who are still here who were bubble guys, but like Sam Roberts, was going to hang, like, you knew he was going to kind of hang around late. You knew a guy like, Ronnie Perkins wasn't in practice today, but he's a guy I think would hang around. Jeremiah Farms was kind of a quick cut candidate, and he's still here. So I think maybe that's strong close to camp. I don't know that he gets on the roster, although without Carl Davis now, he's essentially their backup nose tackle. But he's still here. So I think he's at least on the practice squad.
Yep. That's a good point with the nose tackle. Do you think
because they cut Justice Tavai, which we knew was going to happen?
Yeah, he's the last, because Roberts is more of that like Dietrich Wise mold, right? He's not. A lot of people are saying it's Roberts or Carl Davis, but
Roberts is not like a spacey. He's not that big.
Yeah, he's more of like
he's 6'5", 300. But he's not like a space-eating nose tackle.
Yeah, he plays more like DN, like that Dietrich Wise. So Farms is really the last nose tackle, unless they're planning on Marquand McCall maybe getting healthy and bringing him back in at some point.
Yeah, they're going to need a backup for Godshaw. So maybe Farms sneaks on the roster here. I wouldn't. I eyed him off. I actually had him and Carl Davis off, but I had Carl Davis to the practice squad and being like one of the guys they might sign after they IR somebody. But maybe Jeremiah Farms hangs around.
He was practice squad all year last year.
Yeah, he was on the practice squad all year. He's also he played some offensive line for them last year when injuries built up in practice. So we know like they like him, they trust him. He had I thought a pretty solid end to the summer. Didn't do much early in camp, but I thought in that Green Bay game he was good. I thought he was good against Tennessee. So maybe late push. I had Sam Roberts as kind of like my late push claim a roster spot guy when I did my last roster projection, 98.5thesportshub.com. I had Roberts over Perkins for the last spot, one good week versus one good game, essentially. But maybe Jeremiah Farms hanging in. What a story that would be. Friends University in Kansas to the what league was he in? The CIFL.
Wasn't he the USFL?
Wait, hang on. I have it here. So he went from the what even is this? So this college is in.
If you don't even know about it, that's
the California Community College Athletic Association. So so we went JUCO to, I think, another JUCO. Yeah, so he went JUCO to another JUCO to Friends, I believe, is NAIA. It is. So he went JUCO, NAIA to the Champions Indoor Football League, to the USFL, and then to the New England Patriots. That would be a pretty cool story. People probably didn't want to hear me read all that, but that you can't help but enjoy something like that.
That's quite the path there to follow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they need another body there. It looks like. I think a lot of us thought Carl Davis would, stay on the practice squad and be an early elevation especially against a team like Philly. But he seems kind of out. So maybe that is a guy like Farms. Younger guys, keep those guys around. So that'll be interesting to monitor there on the bubble. But let's hear from our friends over at FanDuel, and then we'll get into a little more of this roster bubble talk.
All right.
Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. I wonder how many people are going to bet on the Patriots. You can use your bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sports book. That's FanDuel.com/Boston.
All right, so now that Scotty Washington's gone, is Kayshon Boutte going to do it? Is he going to take 17 here, do you think?
Oh, good question. I hope not. I like him in 80. I hope he keeps that.
Because he got the 7 at LSU.
But that's different. So he didn't choose 7. He chose 1.
It's like yeah.
I gotta hang on. Let me see. Kayshon Boutte high school. What did he wear in high school?
I was just Googling.
He wore 1.
I think he was 1.
Yeah.
He wore 15 in an All-American game.
Yeah, they don't pick those numbers.
Yeah.
I don't think he takes 17. Does he maybe take 81 if Pop Douglas switches? If Mac Wilson gets cut, Pop Douglas goes to 3. Kayshon Boutte goes to 81.
Maybe.
Keep him the hell away from 17.
Him and Douglas away.
Keep the two of them the hell away from 17. Give whatever practice squad quarterback they sign to replace McSorley 17.
Yep. But you're still in 6 receivers, I'm guessing.
Still in,
there?
yeah.
You like
no reason. I've seen no reason to change anything. I think Boutte not playing a ton Friday night was a good sign for him. I also think it's going to be like 6 receivers at the initial roster, but I think Tyquan Thornton's going on IR. So
yep.
You do need 5. They do need 5. And that's essentially how you get there.
Yep. And it was interesting to hear Bill kind of hype up Boutte right after the game. He said multiple times, like, the way he's progressed this summer is very encouraging. He's had a strong camp, and he noted that he showed that explosive ability, which is what he was so good at that freshman year at LSU. And then, the injuries and whatever, it wasn't there his second year, wasn't there at the combine, part of why he fell all the way to the 6th round. So the fact that Bill's hyping him up, pointing out that, he looks explosive, as we saw in that Green Bay touchdown, like, I think, and then the playing time Friday night, I think he's on this roster. I'll be very surprised if he's not.
I would be shocked if he's not. I think he's got to be.
Yep. And then, hold on, someone had it. The thing we got to talk about.
Well,
the kickers, because it's still here. We still got both of them, and kickers around the league are dropping like flies. The Titans, Michael Badgley, who we saw miss a kick and then hit 2 uprights, he got cut today. The 49ers fans are begging Robbie Gould to come out of retirement, I think, because both of their kickers are hurt. Sean Payton said Denver's in the market for kickers.
Detroit.
Dallas is still shaky. Detroit. Every team needs a kicker. The Patriots are just sitting here with 2. So are we still keeping 2, or are we going to get a good enough trade offer here that we have to let
I don't think
go?
they cut Folk. So the question is, do they do Folk the courtesy of saying, where do you want to go? Do they go to Folk and say, within reason? You call around, you get the offers, and you say, do you want to go to Dallas? Do you want to go, San Francisco? Do you want to go here, there? And do they let him pick? If he's good going anywhere, man, you can run this thing up. You can get a bidding war. Can they get a 5th round pick outright for Nick Folk? It wouldn't surprise me. Would not surprise me. I'm going to be upset if they keep 2 kickers. And I know I've been the 2 kicker guy. I think you guys all understood. I was telling you they were thinking about doing it. I wouldn't do it. At this point, I think Folk has way too much trade value. Way too much trade value to not trade him. You got to deal him.
So the kicker trades, it was Riley Patterson was the
Yeah.
last one in May. Did they ever announce what that? They said it was like an undisclosed pick at the time. I don't know if they ever released the details, but there probably wasn't much need for a kicker like back in May like there is now. So you'd imagine a guy like Folk too, who's been pretty consistent the last few years, would maybe get, you think, a 6, and then if there's really some competition, maybe a 5th.
The last couple of years, once Spot Track updates here, they have the full list of kicker trades. We can go through this, but I'll tell you this: if Trey Lance is worth a 4th, to a contending team, I don't think Nick Folk's worth that much less than Trey Lance at this point. Riley Patterson was dealt for a 7th in May. Let's find some comparable ones. Zane Gonzalez in March for a 7th. All right, Cairo Santo was dealt for a 7th in August of 2021. August 11th. Kare Verdict was dealt for a 5th round pick in 2019. Eddie Pinheiro was dealt for 7th that year. That's kind of like that. Mostly 7th, but there's a couple 5th and 6th. So mostly this is teams with a backup kicker. Like Nick Folk's a starting caliber kicker. I think you're getting better than a 7th for Nick Folk. A 6th for sure, maybe a 5th. Maybe it's like a pick swap, Nick Folk and a 7th for a 5th, but it beats cutting him. You get a pick, it beats cutting him. I absolutely think they can and should trade him.
Yep. And someone said, they don't trust Ryland, too inconsistent. I tallied up the kicks from training camp practices in Foxborough, and I had Ryland, this included the in-stadium night. I had Ryland 44 of 52, which is 85%, and Folk 32 of 39, which is 82%. So I get Folk's been like Mr. Consistent here, but other than like that one last day from Ryland, and Folk had a bad day after, like he's been consistent enough where I think you should feel comfortable. Again, he was consistent 49 and in his last year at Maryland too. So yeah, I think if you can get a pick for Folk, it's like it should be a no-brainer at that point.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yep. And someone else.
Whoop, hang on.
We'll lose you there?
Yeah, I don't know what. I heard somebody said my mic was going, so I tried to adjust it.
Your mic's good. We just lost your video.
Oh, cool. Sweet.
All right, but someone else brought up that at least Barrender was a hit. He is. He was awesome again in that preseason finale. A few huge monster punts. One was like 69 yards. Even it was a touchback, but still traveled very far, flipped the field. So he's been awesome, but still expect probably Waitman here still in some capacity on the practice squad just to, keep a veteran there, keep that left foot in the building. We know they like that a lot. So, but I expect Bryce to have the starting job.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Hang
on, that's my bad camera. I'm trying to get my good camera going. But yeah, I could totally see them keeping 2 kickers, absolutely, or 2 punters, keeping Waitman on the practice squad. Sorry, I'm trying to do like 3 things here at once. Punter keeping, you get that guy with the left foot. From the returners, you prepare for that, and just in case something goes down there, until you have enough.
You cut out there at the end.
All right.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah,
but,
keep going.
I was just going through some comments now. Oh, Malik will be an interesting one, Malik Cunningham, because we got that one possession or drive against Houston, and I'm not seeing it from a wide receiver standpoint. I just don't think that's going to work. I think they should keep him around and try to develop him as a quarterback as much as possible, even if it's just the scout team role. But I don't know. Do you think he has to take up a roster spot here, or can they get him to the practice squad? Where you kind of?
I think they can get him to the practice squad at this point, and that's what they're probably going to do. They clearly didn't need to see any more from him at quarterback. I think their view is him as a long-term receiver, and he's not ready for that at this point. He's still got a way to go. So I think he ends up on the practice squad.
Yeah. You think they can cut him and no one else will. I'm just like, maybe a team like Arizona squeaks in there, like just with, they know they're not going to win this year, and they just take a chance. But you think again, like every team passed on this guy as a quarterback in the draft, right? And then he hasn't seen anything as a receiver that you think teams are going to go run out there and sign him as a receiver. So I don't know. I think they could get him to the practice squad, but I could also see them trying to keep him on the 53 if they don't want to take that chance.
I think it's worth the risk at this point, though.
Yeah, probably. But one last thing. Where was it? Someone right here. One surprise cut. If you think one's going to happen, who you got?
One surprise cut. I feel like this year's pretty chalk, especially with Carl Davis gone. I do kind of wonder about Chris Board. We haven't really heard anything about him. We all just sort of assumed he's on the roster. He's been playing, but he's been very quiet this summer. I guess him, but I still think he's going to make the team.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if, I guess, surprise cut.
It's not a surprise. It's just not a surprise. Like I would and I wouldn't. It's not a surprise cut kind of year. Yeah, if we can count Joshua Bledsoe, yeah. I guess.
I don't know. Is Mac Wilson a surprise at this point?
I don't think so. I'd him off my roster projection.
So, like, he's on that bubble. He's had, some not great moments in run defense.
Bailey Zappi
last year.
Where is Boston Beta to put Zappi's Friday night in context? I want to hear about all that he did and how good he made the offensive line and all of that, and how Mac is hiding on the bench.
Coincidence he's not.
I know, that's crazy. He must have something really important today to not show up after what was Bailey Zappi's most notable game of the year.
Where are you kind of at with Zappi? Are you worried? Like, I know talking in a backup role because neither of us thought he was going to push Mac here, but I mean, it wasn't. I get he was working with backups, a porous offensive line, but are you a little worried about his development there?
A little bit. He was doing a lot of things this year. I think he was just playing. He kept trying to play beyond himself. We talked about this a little bit, where he was doing some things. He wasn't letting the game come to him. Yep. And some of the arm angle throws, some of the things he was doing extend plays. Like, he's out here trying to be Patrick Mahomes, and that's not who he is. And when he sat back and played his game, I still thought he was good. So I don't know, when you get to the regular season and the games matter, because Bill says this all the time, players say this all the time, preseason, training camp, it's for experimenting and sort of growing parts of your game you maybe don't work on as much, that aren't as refined. And if that's what Bailey Zappi was doing, fine, it didn't work. Yep. Experimented, the experiment was failure. So if he kind of knows to cut all that out and just go back and be himself and his confidence didn't take a hit, yeah, he'll still be a fine backup. If he's going to keep doing that stuff in regular season games, I would be worried.
Yep. I still think he's like, he could come in, and if you have to rely on him for one or two games, in a season, I think you could be fine with him in that backup role, develop a game plan like they did last year, play action heavy, run the ball, and he'll be fine. But if you need, something happens to Mac and you need him 6, 7, 8 games, then I think you're, like any team though, in a backup quarterback, it's probably not going to look great here. But
so let me ask you this, Brian. A little spoiler alert here. I'm working. Every year before the season, I do a Patriots bold predictions. I do like 3 or 4 predictions. I've hit on a couple. I had Cam Newton catching a touchdown in 2020. I had Marcus Jones playing in all 3 phases last year. I guess that one wasn't that bold. I've had bolder. I think I had Kyle Duggar rookie of the year one time. I had Juwan Bentley would be the only Patriots linebacker to have over 50% usage rate in 2020. Anyway, does Mac Jones will play all 17 games qualify as a bold prediction?
I'd say so.
More because of the offensive line than like facing pressure from Zappi, but like I'm tempted to put it on there. But starting quarterback will start. I don't know, how bold is that?
But I mean, isn't like around the league a starting quarterback like statistically only plays like 14, 15 games or something without an injury? So I wouldn't say 17 games is that bold.
Anyway, I that's spoiler alert for my bold predictions this year. But
go check that out. When's that released?
That won't be till next week.
All right, keep a look at that.
Got to get the roster first.
Yeah. We'll So that'll keep, coming out again. They have till Tuesday, 4 p.m. to get down to that 53 players. Any other last things before we go that you saw practice today, roster cuts, preseason game, predicting over the next few days?
No, you just kind of sit back and wait at this point. I think it's, as Mac Jones would say, the hay's in the barn. Their roster projections are done. Their predictions are made. We're done watching open practice. It is going to be what it is going to be at this point. So we wait and see. Maybe there's another trade, something like that. Maybe because I still think I look at. Let's do this. Where could they add externally? I still think they could add another tackle. I wouldn't rule that out. I think they could add a tight end. That one's less likely. I'm going in order of position, not like most likely. I wouldn't rule out them adding a nose tackle somehow. We know they wanted to add one in Marquand McCauley. He didn't pass his physical. We sort of talked about this earlier. Not a ton of depth in terms of true nose tackles, like those 320-pound plus space-eating run stoppers. It's Godshaw, sort of Jeremiah Farms. He's even a little on the smaller side for that role. Maybe Sam Roberts, but he's also on the smaller side for that role, and that's it. So I think adding another nose tackle would make sense.
Yep, I could see that. Hopefully,
that could also be for like just adding period. It could be somebody you add to the practice squad and call up later.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if McCall maybe gets healthy and finds his way back, but
reappears. All right, here's a good question.
I was just gonna say, Mike asked the Cardinals.
This tackle. One, yeah, the Cardinals tackle got traded already.
Yep,
he went for a fifth. I think
it was like him and a seventh for a fifth.
So I would have done that.
Nick Casario got in there.
I would have done that rather than trade Pierre Strong. I was going to bring up this one. Nope, not that one. We already talked about that at the beginning of the show. Here we go. If they want to trade Thornton, what's his value? Too low, way too low. Don't trade him. Don't like. And I'm not saying his value is necessarily going to get better, but you drafted him the second round a year ago. You're going to get back maybe a seventh. Probably going to be a pick swap, 7th, 6th, and 7th. So I don't think it's worth trading him at this point. You don't even necessarily need to give him a true roster spot right away. You put him on IR. He has no guaranteed money on his contract next year. So it's not like you need to get out from under his deal. You can cut him next year without any consequence. If they trade him, that's a real panic move.
Yeah.
Unless somebody wants to get like very stupid. I don't know. Maybe somebody's going to get stupid. If somebody, I do like a fourth. That's where 5th or lower at that point, I'm keeping him and like, let's see if he can figure it out from here. But I don't think you're getting that.
Yeah, there's no reason to trade him, and they might still be hoping he comes back at some point whenever he's healthy and contribute this year, because they still could use that speed element. I know Douglas and Booty looks a little more explosive, and Parker looks a little more explosive, but they could still try to use that. But yeah, we'll see, because it was a really disappointing summer from Taekwon. But yeah, his value's so low. There's no money. Just save him and see what happens, and then reevaluate after the year. But yeah, I wouldn't get rid of him yet.
Yeah.
Any others you see, or should we just wrap it up here?
I'm kind of stalling because like right after we get off the air, they're going to make a major move. So. I think maybe let's just let's sign off so they can make the move.
10 cuts in a trade on Sunday. That's
a good start. It's good. 11 cuts.
11.
Yeah.
All right. So pretty good start there, but rest of it will have to be done by Tuesday. They're off tomorrow. They're practicing Tuesday, Wednesday. So me and Alex will be back at some point next week to break that down.
I guess, next week. We'll probably be back Thursday morning.
Or this week, next week.
I keep thinking it's Monday. Yeah. Hang on. I know what we can do before we wrap it up. Mookie Betts was back this weekend at Fenway. Yeah. Red Sox got smacked around by the Dodgers. Good. That's what a big market baseball team should look like, Red Sox fans. Don't let ownership tell you otherwise. Don't let ownership tell you this is the way to do it, and we need to work around the luxury tax and this and that and Chaim Bloom and the Tampa plan. You saw what a big market baseball team is supposed to look like. That should be the standard. Anything less than that is a disappointment and a failure. And if that makes this GM regime a failure and a disappointment, so be it.
Yep. It's tough to see Mookie. It was a little
I was super glad to see him, and I'm glad he had a great weekend, and I'm glad he did.
I was happy to see him, but it was like tough.
I hope after he hit that home run, he pointed right up at Chaim Bloom.
Henry.
Both of them, whoever.
I was just gonna ask something about Mookie, but I forget what it was.
We can do it next time. I just want to get that in real quick.
One last thing. UMass? Did you see UMass?
So I was at Bruce Springsteen last night. Okay. I didn't see it, but I heard they were impressive against one of the worst teams in college football. We'll see what happens.
In the playoffs right now, according to a lot of people, college football playoffs. But yeah, so we'll be back this week, next week. You'll see.
We'll be back. We'll be back Thursday morning. We might do a show before then, but we'll be back Thursday morning to react to roster cuts in the practice squad and all that.
So make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. Have your Patriots Press Pass notifications on so you do know when we go live. Until then, you can go follow Alex on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Go read all his roster cut down, end of the training camp work over at 985thesportshub.com. You can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines, and go read all my coverage over at patspulpit.com. Thank you all for tuning in as always, and we will see you guys soon.